So we need to be completely honest about A'ja Wilson here. Because these are some of the dumbest, some of the dumbest conversations ever in sport is surrounding A'ja Wilson.
Imagine you're A.A. Wilson, the WNBA MVP. You've just claimed you can beat NBA players in one-on-one, and the whole basketball world is losing at Jeff Teague, says you can't even beat a college player. Cheryl Miller thinks she could guard you, and your own teammate Kelsey Plum is saying you're outmatched physically. But here's where it gets wild. This isn't just about A'ja anymore. It sparked a firestorm about men's and women's sports that's got everyone talking, from fans to pros. We're diving into this controversy to see what it really means for basketball and maybe change how you see the game forever. Can you believe what A'ja Wilson just said? She didn't just claim she could compete with NBA players. She said she'd dominate them. Let's break down exactly what Wilson claimed on that podcast. She said she'd beat Josh Hart 11-8 in a one-on-one game.
Like 8-11. Me. I get ball first.
You get ball first.
She does get ball first.
Not gonna get it back. But that's gonna be your time. Like, that's gonna be your period, which is fine. I'm not saying you're gonna go scoreless, but I feel like it's pretty solid.
Now, you might be thinking, is this just trash talk, or does Wilson really believe this stuff? Well, here's where it gets interesting. Wilson wasn't joking around. She doubled down on her claim like she truly believes she could take on NBA talent. But hold on a second, let's look at Josh Hart's stats. He's averaging 14. 2 points, 8, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists per game for the Knicks this season. That's no joke. So what's going on here? Is Wilson just super confident, or is she living in a fancy world? When the podcast host heard her bold prediction, they were stunned. Hart even joked that he'd win 11-2 before adjusting to 11-7 after Wilson got frustrated.
I was just about to violate this. I'm about to say,
Right.
damn, probably like 11-2.
You're sick. You're sick.
Nah, I'll say like a good 11, probably like 11-7.
But Wilson stuck to her guns, maintaining that she'd come out on top. Now, you might be wondering how people are reacting to this outrageous claim. Well, let me tell you, social media is on fire. Fans are using hashtags like fully delusional to describe Wilson's statement. It's causing a huge stir in the basketball world and making people question her grip on reality.
While a part of me gives it to her because she is a competitor, and I could just see a lot of people in her position being like, just having full confidence in themselves, like that's the competitive nature in her. I do think that she's a bit delusional here, and also like maybe the slightest bit disrespectful.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about Wilson's personal belief anymore. It sparked a much bigger conversation about the gap between men's and women's sports. People are debating the differences in athleticism skill levels and how we value different types of athletic abilities.
It's different because of our physical abilities. And so I think firstly, this whole could A'ja Wilson beat anyone in the NBA conversation has blown a little bit out of proportion, but that's what the internet does. It started out as something that was just friendly banter, and I know that people were jumping to Josh Hart's defense because I am in agreement that I think he would beat her. She would maybe score a couple of times, but if he really wanted to lock down, like he's going up against the best players in the world, and it's a tiny bit disrespectful to say that.
Think about it. Wilson is the reigning WNBA MVP. She's at the top of her game in women's basketball. But does that translate to success against NBA players? Some fans are backing her up, saying her skills shouldn't be underestimated. Others are calling her out, saying she's completely out of touch with reality. You thought fans were harsh? Wait till you hear what the pros have to say. NBA veterans aren't just disagreeing with Wilson, they are bringing out the big guns. And when you hear what Jeff Teague said, you might just fall out of your chair. Jeff Teague, former NBA All-Star and champion, didn't just shake his head at Wilson's claim. He straight up demolished it. He said Wilson couldn't beat any NBA player.
So A'ja Wilson can't beat nobody in NBA.
No. That might just spook.
Not one.
But hold on, it gets even crazier. Teague didn't stop there. He said she couldn't even take down a G League player or a college baller. That's some serious shade. But here's where it gets really interesting. He didn't just throw out these claims without backing them up. He broke it down for us, talking about the huge gap in physical ability and skill between NBA men and WNBA women. It's not just about who can shoot better or run faster. We're talking about a whole different level of athleticism here.
able to beat men. That is why we have women's sports and why we have men's sports. There are different categories because there are different physical advantages that men have naturally, biologically, that we don't have, but we don't have to compete with them. We shouldn't have to compete with them, and we also shouldn't be compared to them because it's different.
Now you might be thinking, come on, surely the gap can't be that big, right? Well, Teague's got some numbers that might make your jaw drop. He pointed out that even bench players in the NBA used to average 40 points in high school and college.
Do y'all know on the bench used to average 40 in high school and niggas 20 in college?
That's not just good, that's insane. We're talking about guys who barely see time in the NBA, and they were absolute monsters before they even went pro. So is Teague just being harsh, or is he telling it like it is? Well, turns out he's not alone in his thinking. Other NBA players and analysts are backing him up, saying the physical differences are just too big to ignore. We're talking about guys who are taller, heavier, and can jump higher than their WNBA counterparts. It's not just about skill, it's about raw physical power.
The top WNBA player is not beating the 12th man.
She's not beating a in the G League. She's not beating a in college.
But hold on, because this story is about to take an unexpected turn. You might be wondering, is everyone in the basketball world ganging up on Wilson? Well, not exactly, but the reactions from other players both in the NBA and WNBA are adding fuel to this already blazing fire. Just when you thought this basketball drama couldn't get any hotter, guess who's stepping into the ring? None other than Cheryl Miller herself. Now you might be thinking Shirley Miller is going to back up her fellow WNBA star, right? Well, think again, because Miller didn't just disagree with Wilson, she came out swinging.
I wasn't just a scorer. I feel very comfortable that I could guard A'ja and make it very difficult.
Can you believe it? Miller, a basketball legend in her own right, said she could guard Wilson and make life difficult for her on the court. But here's where it gets really wild. Miller didn't stop there. She basically said Wilson wouldn't stand a chance against her if they played. I mean, talk about confidence. Now let's remember who we're talking about here. Cheryl Miller isn't just any player. She's a 3-time Naismith College Player of the Year and a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. Oh, and did I mention she's also a 5-time gold medalist with Team USA? This woman is a definition of basketball royalty. So what's going on here? Why is a women's basketball icon throwing shade at one of today's biggest WNBA stars? Well, it turns out Miller's comments aren't just about Wilson. They are opening up a bigger conversation about how we compare players across different eras of the game. You see, Miller didn't just say she could beat Wilson. That's right, she went as far as to say she would always make sure she got 10 more than Wilson or Wilson wouldn't get hers. That's not just trash talk, that's a legend staking her claim on basketball history. But here's where it gets really interesting. Miller's not just talking about herself, she's making a point about special talents in basketball. She said there are certain special talents that you put them in any point in the history of the game and they do their damage.
There's no one now that I look at, even today. A'ja might be the one I'm like, she'd get hers, but God, I would always make sure I got 10 more than she did, or she wouldn't get hers.
It's like she's saying some players are so good they dominate no matter when they play. Now you might be wondering, is this just about Miller versus Wilson? Not at all. This clash of titans is sparking discussions all over the basketball world. It's not just about who's better, it's about how we compare players from different eras. Can you really stack up a player from the 80s against a star from today?
I know people are going to take this wrong, and I do care, but I really don't. But there's no question and no doubt in my mind that I could play. I would have been not just competitive in the W, wouldn't have missed a beat.
They are causing a tsunami in the basketball community. Everyone's weighing in, from fans to analysts to other players. It's like Miller just opened Pandora's box of basketball debates. And let me tell you, people are paying attention. Miller's comments aren't just making waves. Just when you thought this basketball drama couldn't get any more intense, A.A. Wilson's own teammate steps into the spotlight. And let me tell you, what she's about to say is going to change everything. Kelsey Plum, the sharpshooter for the Las Vegas Aces and Wilson's teammate, didn't just disagree with Wilson's bold claim. She broke it down in a way that's got everyone talking. Can you believe it? Plum didn't hold back when she admitted that while she could compete skill-wise with NBA players, she'd be totally outmatched physically, especially on defense. She pointed out a crucial fact, that we can't ignore the sheer size difference between NBA and WNBA players. Plum's basically saying that no matter how skilled you are, when you're up against someone who's got a massive physical advantage, it's a whole different ball game. Now you might be wondering why would Plum say this about her own teammate? Isn't that like betraying your own team? Well, here's the thing, Plum's not just talking about Wilson, she's giving us a real insider view of the physical challenges WNBA players face every day. It's like she's pulling back the curtain and showing us what it's really like to compete at that level.
NBA players, you are convinced you can beat one-on-one?
No.
Not one?
Not even someone from the bench. You have to understand, if we're doing like shooting workouts, skill workouts, I'm very confident in anyone that you put in front of me that I can compete. Just sheer size, athleticism, that's the problem. Maybe I can score, but like, who am I going to defend?
But wait, there's more. The Las Vegas Aces team management hasn't said a word about all this drama. Can you imagine the tension in that locker room right now? It's like a powder keg waiting to explode. We've seen this kind of thing before in other sports where teammates publicly disagree, and it never ends. Well, it can mess with team chemistry, affect performance, and even impact how fans see the team. Can you believe how A.A. Wilson's claim has set the basketball world on fire? It's not just about the game anymore, it's sparking a huge debate about gender and athletics in sports. This controversy is making us take a hard look at how we see male and female athletes and the expectations we put on them.
Ability. That's why there was this whole debate when Caitlin Clark was in college, like, put Caitlin Clark in the NBA, like, she's good enough to be in the NBA. And while I agree Caitlin Clark is good enough as a shooter to shoot in the NBA, the speed of the game is so much quicker and the physicality is so much quicker.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about Wilson anymore. It's opening up a much bigger conversation about the differences between men's and women's sports and how we value different kinds of athletic skills. You might be thinking it's just basketball, but it's so much more than that. It's challenging us to rethink everything we thought we knew about sports and gender. So what do you think? Is Wilson just super confident, or is she way off base? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more hot takes on the world of basketball. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
When it comes to just skills, they're not competing physically against one another. I would put money on some WNBA players that they could outshoot certain NBA players. But when it comes down to a game that's as physical as one-on-one, when it comes down to the speed, the height, the quickness, the defensive abilities, that's where I think that Josh Hart and some of these men, and you have to understand, men in the NBA have some of the biggest egos in the world, and rightfully so when it comes to their sport, because they have worked really hard to get to that place and they have beat out so many people along the way.
Can you believe it? Miller, a basketball legend in her own right, said she could guard Wilson and make life difficult for her on the court. But here's where it gets really wild. Miller didn't stop there. She basically said Wilson wouldn't stand a chance against her if they played. I mean, talk about confidence. Now let's remember who we're talking about here. Cheryl Miller isn't just any player. She's a 3-time Naismith College Player of the Year and a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. Oh, and did I mention she's also a 5-time gold medalist with Team USA?
It comes down to the common sense of it all. I don't think it's going to happen. And I don't think that it should get to the point where we're online making this argument so serious. Like, it's truly not that serious. I don't truly think that it's going to happen, that A'ja will ever play an NBA player. I mean, she could, maybe set up with a G League player or somebody in that regard. I don't think an NBA player is going to agree to play her one-on-one. And I think that we would find out pretty quickly the difference in skill and ability. And
think about it, Wilson is the reigning WNBA MVP. She's at the top of her game in women's basketball, but does that translate to success against NBA players? Some fans are backing her up, saying her skills shouldn't be underestimated. Others are calling her out, saying she's completely out of touch with reality. You thought fans were harsh? Wait till you hear what the pros have to say. NBA veterans aren't just disagreeing with Wilson, they are bringing out the big guns. And when you hear what Jeff Teague said, you might just fall out of your chair. Jeff Teague, former NBA All-Star and champion, didn't just shake his head at Wilson's claim. He straight up demolished it. He said Wilson couldn't beat any NBA player.
Able to beat men. That is why we have women's sports and why we have men's sports. There are different categories because there are different physical advantages that men have naturally, biologically, that we don't have, but we don't have to compete with them. We shouldn't have to compete with them, and we also shouldn't be compared to them because it's different.